Hey y'all, Corrupt Fox here. I'm a Sonic fan. Pretty bold statement, I know. I've been a Sonic fan for almost 7 years now. The first game I played was Sonic 2 on my shitty Android back in 2015. I've been with this franchise ever since then. I know that the games and the fans have gotten bombarded with unjustified hate over the years, which is only because of the excuse of 06 ruining the franchise, but I don't care. I'm here to make things right, and to show these big reviewers who make hot takes on games that they've never even played what for. Take it from someone who's younger, I've heard it all. I don't intend to hate on or disrespect these popular, famous reviewers, but I feel like the unjustified hate is what made Sega bow down to them and made Sonic into a joke as a result. There are good reviewers out there, but they're very far and few in between when it comes to actually understanding this franchise. When I refer to people who don't understand this franchise, I refer to people like ProJared, who unjustifiably hates Adventure 2, due to his unwillingness to learn how you're supposed to properly play as Tails and Knuckles. This disdain towards the franchise that comes from people who genuinely aren't willing to understand why people like this franchise, how to play the games properly, nor willing to understand the stories is what pisses me off. Mindless hate is all too common in this fanbase, due to the fact that the Sonic games with actual unique gimmicks that served the gameplay purpose and stories that were good were disregarded by 30-year-old reviewers who only remember Sonic for the classic era and nothing else. Due to that, these reviewers ended up spreading their opinions to the general public without intending to, or possibly they did, considering how they talk about the rough transition into 3D, as if everybody feels that way. This is also a problem with reviewers, where they never think about how the other people feel when making an opinionated review. These people are most likely their target audience, so why disregard the other person's opinion and try to reflect your own opinion onto your target audience, despite the fact that their target audience may be vulnerable to not being able to properly articulate their opinions yet. With a title as vague and straight to the point as Sonic 1 Review, this common mistake is avoided. Sure, the title is less interesting, but it's more honest, which will do more good in the long run when it comes to gaining traction, because you're not attempting to reflect your own opinions onto gullible people, nor are you lying about how you feel. I feel like this is a lesson that content creators that are just starting out, like I am, should learn from. Of course, this method doesn't exactly work 100%, due to the fact that, in the wise words of Scott Wozniak, everybody has their own opinions and that's how it should be. And that statement holds true. You don't have to necessarily agree with everything the person says, and putting your opinion publicly on the internet is a common practice, especially in the world of video games. Which means, yes, you could theoretically ignore what you don't agree with, but that makes another problem arise, in the way that it's considered ignorance, which is true. You have to hear the person out and listen to their opinion thoroughly, instead of ignoring that and either going with how critics and the general public feels, rather than considering how the minority feels. Like how Jay's Reviews does. And you could ignore people's opinion entirely and attempt to shove it down your throat like how ProJared does. The reason I'm talking about this is because I'm attempting to teach people on how to articulate opinions respectfully, rather than how big reviewers do it, where they only focus on review scores, how the critics feel, and the general consensus, or they remain blissfully ignorant of people's opinions without fully understanding why they like it. I just wanted to get that off my chest, due to how I feel like this sort of negative behavior has impacted how people perceive each other's opinions. I need to get a hold of my composure. Welcome to my Sonic 1 review. I have two footnotes I want to clarify before I tear into the game proper, however. First of all, I'll be using the Japanese lore due to better characterization and it feeling more cinematic because the Japanese stories are the original. However, there will be exceptions to this rule, like with Frontiers, due to the writing of that game's Japanese script disregarding the previous characterization of the characters in the Japanese dubs, but also because it just so happens that the English dub is the original this time around, which I think makes it up a bit, shakes it up a bit, which is nice. Considering how they brought Ian Flynn on as writer for Frontiers and hopefully future games too, this means I'll be factoring in the IDW comics into my reviews, due to the comics bridging the gap between Forces and Frontiers, but I'll save that for later. Despite the comics being translated into Japanese, I'll be sticking with the original English version of the comic. I'll also be playing and reviewing these games in chronological order. I'll make a separate video explaining my timeline, but for now, I'll leave it at that. As for my second footnote, I won't be playing Origins for my review of the reviews of the classic games. You may be asking why. Due to many other people using Origins despite its flaws. However, there is a good reason for why I'm not playing Origins. The developers have already gone on record on multiple social media services like Twitter, I'm not calling it X, about the developmental woes they faced while making the collection. The ports used in Origins are the 2013 mobile ports, and they included an exclusive port of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which has been something fans have requested for Sega to do for years, but they didn't listen due to legal issues regarding the music. In 2019, however, the tables turned, as a Sonic 3 prototype was leaked online, finally settling the rumors that the Sonic and Knuckles collection songs for Carnival Night, Ice Cap, Launch Base, the credits, and Knuckles' theme were exclusively made for the ports, presumably due to technical limitations. It was found that they were instead the original songs before Michael Jackson was brought on board. However, this has raised questions about why they decided on leaving the tracks Michael Jackson composed in the final game, but I digress. They decided to remix the prototype tracks for the aforementioned levels in place of the original tracks. The developers have said that Sega rushed them to release the collection the exact day of Sonic 1's 30th anniversary, so they had to scrap what they had originally promised and market it as DLC later. That's why I'm using these enhanced PC ports for the classic games, but the PC ports of Sonic games having a bad reputation when it comes to not being close to the originals is going to be a repeated issue. What port will I be using, you may be asking? I've got your answer right here. Based on Pariah 695's video of the definitive ports of all the Sonic games, I'll be using the ports that are either the most convenient or the definitive way to play the game. In this case, I'll be using the fan-made PC ports by Team Forever. Team Forever have made enhanced ports of Sonic 1 and 2, whereas for CD I'll be using Restored, and for 3 and Knuckles I'll be using the Free Air, or Angel Island Revisited for short. To me, I believe these 4 ports to be the definitive ways to play the classic Sonic tetralogy. Despite me talking crap about Origins earlier, Forever does have upsides to it, however. The fact that Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy are playable, you're able to toggle a swath of options which relate to the controls, music, and quality of life additions. I even have these ports set up to launch via Steam with the rest of the Sonic games I own. One downside is that you can't control the volume of the audio in-game, and have to do it manually. I won't let the beautifully animated cutscenes by Tyson Hesse go to waste in my reviews, despite me not using Origins, because they actually tie the games together as you play story mode. Now that I've got that long out introduction out of the way, how about we talk about the development and story? All of the information stated in this video is sourced from Sonic Retro or my own knowledge. Back in 1990, Sega held a company-wide contest with the goal of their employees helping to create a new mascot for them due to their previous mascot, Alex Kidd, not selling as well as they had hoped or projected. Over 200 designs were submitted to the contest. Two young Japanese men, Yuji Naka and Naoto Oshima, decided to accept the challenge. Oshima made the character design and Naka was the programmer. Oshima originally came up with the character of a rabbit named Feel, who would pick up things with his ears and throw them at enemies. However, this design was rejected due to the immense amount of programming it would have required. The concept would later go on to make Ristar. This design finally became reality when it was included as DLC for Sonic Superstars 33 years later. Another design was a fat bald man with blue glasses. Sega asked them to make a game about this character, and they gladly accepted the proposal. Later that night, Naka and Oshima went to a local restaurant to grab a bite to eat and brainstorm ideas for the game. Naka was always enamored by the idea of a character that could roll into a ball to gain momentum. Oshima drew some sketches on a napkin of a hedgehog with sneakers and gloves. Oshima came up with the name Mr. Needle Mouse and showed the design to Naka, who approved of the design, as hedgehogs roll into a ball as a defense tactic, which could be used for gaining momentum by rolling down hills. Naka said to Oshima that he should show his design to the higher-ups, and so he did. The design gained unanimous praise when shown to the higher-ups, and after renaming the character to Sonic, and redesigning him slightly, giving him blue fur, peach skin, white socks, and red shoes with white stripes on the side, and gold buckles embedded into the shoe, Sonic the Hedgehog as we know him today finally came to be. However, they didn't want their previous design to go to waste, so they made the fat bald man with glasses the villain, giving him the name of Dr. Eggman. The Sonic and Dr. Eggman we know today were now made. In recent years, Yuji Naka got arrested due to being caught doing insider stock trading and was promptly fired by Square Enix, whereas Naoto Oshima returned for Sonic Superstars and made a 3D model of Feel the Rabbit as free DLC for Sonic Superstars, as a costume to go over Sonic's original model. It's safe to say that these two have gone their separate ways, sadly, due to despite how influential they both were in the creation of the franchise and the character in general. Aside from the actual story of how the game came to be that I just described, and mock-up screenshots from foreign magazines before the game's release, we never knew what it was like during development. On January 1st, 2021, a guy named Buckaroo was rummaging through a box of stuff he was planning to sell on eBay until he found an EP-ROM cartridge of a prototype of Sonic 1. The ROM header incorrectly lists the date as 1989, before development had begun. Cross-checking with a French magazine places the date of the prototype in 1990. Buckaroo informed Hidden Palace, who released a blog post appropriately named it Dreams Come True, referencing the name of Masato Nakamura's band. Enough of development talk. Let's talk about the story and gameplay. The Japanese story from the manuals on Sonic Retro have been translated by Wikipedia. I'll go through an abridged version of it to avoid plagiarism. It's not specified when Sonic and Eggman met, but it's clear they've known each other for quite some time by now. Eggman, Eggman laments Sonic's ability to foil his plans, yet he vows to crush the Hedgehog with the power of his immense knowledge pertaining to science and technology. South Island is a wondrous island filled with beautiful gemstones and ancient ruins. It is also said to be the island where the elusive Chaos Emeralds lay dormant. The Chaos Emeralds are a superstar substance that provides energy to all living beings. They can be used to create nuclear weapons through the power of science and technology. However, no one knows how to obtain them. The reason is because South Island is a moving island, and the Chaos Emeralds exist within the distortions that the island creates while it moves. One day, Dr. Eggman and his robot henchmen landed on the island. Dr. Eggman begins his excavation and construction on the island, promising to find a way to get the Chaos Emeralds. After hearing rumors about the Doctor's plan to ruin the island in search of the Chaos Emeralds, thanks to his animal friends who informed him, Sonic rushes over to confront Dr. Eggman about his plan. In the past, Dr. Eggman had always been dealt with, as his harassment was a regular occurrence, both for the island and Sonic. Eggman may think of Sonic as his nemesis, but he acknowledges that despite the scientific genius he is, he's no match for the spirit that the Blue Hedgehog holds. Eggman reveals to Sonic that he has encapsulated his friends into robotic shells he calls baddies, created for the purpose of preventing Sonic from stopping his plan. Eggman promises to conquer not only South Island, but soon the whole world will bow down before him. Sonic rushes off to defeat Eggman, starting off in Green Hill. There's this odd misconception that's been parroted in recent years that Sonic's gameplay is only about speed, which is completely wrong. Sonic's gameplay is actually about momentum, and specifically tailors the level design to accommodate for a character's specific locomotion. Sonic has the ability to roll, making it possible to gain momentum down slopes if you're at the right angle. I usually play with the spin dash and drop dash on, along with the elemental shields, but I know that purists may not agree with how I play, but that's fine. Obviously, the spin dash nor the drop dash were in Sonic 1 or 3 and Knuckles originally, but I'll be using it anyway, due to the fact that it gives you extra speed on demand, basically. In that way, that ability makes it more convenient than the spin dash. As for the other playable characters, Tails can fly spinning his twin tails, and Knuckles can glide using his dreadlocks, and climb walls using his spiked knuckles. Try not to think about the horrifying mental image. And Amy can use her hammer to either hammer jump or hammer spin. By going into the options menu, you can toggle Tails' flight cancel and Amy's moveset to either be similar to the advanced games, where she is slower and less agile than Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, or you can select a custom one that was specifically made for Forever, which adds the new hammer jump and hammer spin as previously mentioned. I'll be using the Tails flight cancel option and Amy's Forever moveset due to those options being comfortable for me to use. As for the level design, unlike how the majority of people feel, I feel like Marble Zone, Spring Yard Zone, Labyrinth Zone, and Scrap Brain Zone actually add to the experience. The aforementioned zones may not have many sections where you can take advantage of your abilities or gain momentum, but they deliver on good platforming. Sonic's gameplay is a marriage between momentum, platforming, and exploration, but it seems like most people don't understand that. That's why people nowadays think that Sonic is all about speed, which is how the solo era makes the gameplay seem like. There are so many misconceptions about multiple elements of this franchise to the point where I could make a few separate videos discussing them, because it seems like people aren't willing to accept that Sonic was always good, and the solo era games elaborate on that fact because after 06, They started making fresh ideas that actually worked, and stories that are the most memorable stories that fans still talk about today. I'd say that goes up to an extent, however, due to Colors being completely different from the previous games. Colors' linearity has actually made me realize that people are often too harsh on the zones in Sonic 1. Aside from Green Hill and Starlight, I will admit that the level design can get claustrophobic in some moments, like the shortcut in Scrap Brain Act 3, but I feel like for the majority of the level design works to the gameplay's benefit. I wish I had more to say, but I'm not good at writing scripts. Or apparently voice work. Hopefully I'll improve in due time once I get used to making videos often. Hopefully 2024 will be my year. Even if the general reception of new Sonic games has dwindled over the years, one thing fans can agree on is that the music is always good, even if I know in hindsight that music taste is subjective. As for who composed the music, Masato Nakamura composed the music for this game, as well as Sonic 2. Due to the consoles at the time not being able to handle real audio with real instruments, Masato Nakamura first made demo tapes with real instruments, which would then be translated to work with the Genesis's hardware. Rumors that his music was transcribed by someone else to work on the Genesis's hardware aren't true, as he directly translated them to work himself. Sadly, after Sonic 2, he left Sega after they declined his request to get paid more for his contributions, which I feel is a reasonable request. Luckily, by the release of Sonic Jam in 1997, the legal issues regarding Sonic 1 and 2's music were finally sorted out. In 2013, Christian Taxman Whitehead and Simon Stealth Conley were contracted to make mobile ports of Sonic 1 and 2, after they were contracted in 2011 to make a mobile port of Sonic CD that released on Steam, Xbox 360, and PC, and PlayStation 3. However, the Sonic 1 and 2 ports that released later were trapped on mobile devices until 2022, with the release of Sonic Origins celebrating the franchise's 30th anniversary. But I've already talked about why I'm not using Origins. But will be using the beautifully animated cutscenes. Regardless, the ports of Sonic 1, CD, and 2, the music is remastered using the original sources of the instruments used in the original games, which make these versions of the soundtracks the highest quality versions that are officially available. Even though that statement is true, I feel like sometimes the clean effect they use on the music, I don't know how else to describe it properly, is a bit too much, especially as it overshadows the drums and makes them barely audible. One good example for this is Starlight Zone, but I know that those are drums that are meant to emulate the sound of a person's foot tapping to the beat, so it doesn't bother me too much. As a side note, I know this doesn't have to do anything with music, but I just realized that most of the sound effects only use the PSG channels instead of the main FM channels. Overall, an amazing soundtrack to complement vast and lush and creative environments, and is a good blueprint for how Sonic music should and will set the mood for the levels in the future. The only main exception being Forces. Sadly, if you suffer from epilepsy, you may want to skip this part of the video due to rapidly flashing graphical assets that I don't know how to fix, no matter how hard I try. Before I get to my conclusion and talk about my overall thoughts on the game, I thought I'd include the handheld version of this game, but not the Game Gear version that everybody knows about due to the massive amount of screen crunch in that version. Luckily, the 8-bit version was also released on the Master System. Due to the larger screen size, it feels like these 8-bit versions were actually made with the Master System in mind. Thus, that's the version that most people go with. But when Sega officially re-releases these 8-bit games, they usually use the Game Gear versions for some odd reason, even though the Master System ports are superior in terms of for the games that actually have them. As for which version I'll be using the remastered version of Sonic 1 by Creative Araya, which, alongside its Genesis counterpart, will be linked in the description so that you can download these games for yourself. Trust me, they're good. As for how this version of the game plays, it's a mainly faithful conversion of how the controls worked on Genesis. A few omissions had to be made to get this running smoothly on the Master System, such as moving the block pushing animation, which is fitting because Marble Zone originally wasn't in the final Master System version, but was initially planned, and only having one balancing animation for Legends. As for the physics, they're slightly different to accommodate for the level design. This port's level design involves a few precise platforming segments like in Jungle Zone, but due to the slippery controls when trying to land on a platform precisely, alongside Sonic continuing his momentum from his initial running jump, this can often cause you to slide off platforms that you were intending to land on top of. This issue could be and would be reintroduced in Heroes, which is the main reason why people don't like that game, like how that game controls. And I feel like that same criticism applies here, but also applies to the odd level design decisions the team made while making this port. This issue gets worse in the sequel, but we'll get there when we get there. I realize that I'm saying that a lot in this video. Maybe it's a sign that I should shut up now. Unlike the original Genesis version, this version replaces the original zones with exclusive ones. Remember how I said Marble Zone was originally planned to be included? This may suggest that originally the other zones were also planned to be included but were scrapped in order to make this port even more unique than the original. Jungle Zone replaced Marble Zone. This is a zone that's set in, well, a jungle instead of ancient ruins, which I think is a good switch of setting compared to the original. I know a lot of people seemingly don't acknowledge the handheld versions of the console games when talking about them, nor do they acknowledge the actually console exclusive games, but it seems like they've been getting more acknowledgement as of recent years, and I'm honestly glad. As for how I feel about the game overall, I'm going to be factoring this version into my conclusion along with the Genesis version. I wasn't able to fully complete the game due to the issues I mentioned earlier, which ended up really testing my patience. I feel like they could have prevented these issues if they actually kept the ring system, made the level design less claustrophobic, and loosened up the control in the special stages. The only regrets I have making this video is the fact that I wasn't able to complete Sonic 1 8-bit, but the footage will be enough for the video's sake. My last regret is how long this video took to come out, due to me revising the script too often, due to me never really having made a script for my videos before, real life issues on top of me making this channel a few years ago, but never uploading until last year. I know I'm still new to being a YouTuber despite the fact that I've had various channels, but now I'm actually able to know what I want to do in life and what type of content I want to make. All of which are reasons why this video took so long to come out, but hopefully my fears will be quelled with time. Hopefully my writing skills will get better over time and I'll be able to upload more consistently. Both versions of Sonic 1 act as a good blueprint for what the series, and the franchise as a whole, will become in the future. The gameplay formula has a strong foundation, but the level design is at fault for not taking advantage of it as often as people think it should. I know that I said earlier that the zones that people tend to hate on are like briefers, but I do acknowledge their opinions and the reasons behind them, because I usually try to keep an open mind when having an opinion on something, regardless if it's serious or not. As for what I'll be reviewing next, I'll be reviewing these games in chronological order so that it's easier to binge watch. Plus, it just makes more sense that way. As for what game I'll be reviewing next, I'll be reviewing Sonic CD before I do Sonic 2 for that reason. Hopefully I'll be able to make 2024 a good year for my life and this channel. I just have to put in a little bit of effort and everything will come to fruition, hopefully. As for when that video will come out, it'll come out when it's ready. Since it's so early in my channel's history, I want to take making videos at my own pace for now, before I actually establish a real upload schedule, if I ever do. I bet you've heard enough of me rambling, so I'll end it here. See you in the next video.